Hey everyone, welcome back to Covetous Imp Gaming. This week I want to talk to you about the new 5e campaign that came out from Wizards of the Coast, Call of the Netherdeep. Before we get started, please like this video, leave us a comment below about things you'd like to see in the future, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. Like any 5e book from Wizards of the Coast, you know you're going to have your new magic items and your new stat blocks for monsters. And this book delivers all those things. There's some very interesting looking magic items and some amazing new monsters, that one of which I cannot wait to use, and I have a way to weasel it into another campaign I'm running, and I'm going to do that. There's also the rival system. So there's a rival adventuring party that you stumble across, and they are constantly kind of at odds with the group. You can build kind of like a reputation up with a few members of it based on the things that you do, but for the most part, it starts out as a rival group, and they have their own stat blocks that progress as the campaign goes on. So for chapters 1 and 2, they're this stat block. For 3 and 4, they're this stat block, and 5, 6, 7, they're their final form. It's really an interesting kind of thing to introduce. I know one of the things for me is it's very hard to really foreshadow and think ahead of what's this monster going to be like, or when is my party going to get to this monster, and to sculpt it around, well, if they get here at level 6, that's cool, but if they skip it and they get back here at level 9, what do I do? And to have that kind of the mentality of the rival system, to throw that in to monsters, and so that they always have a challenging fight when they get to those key fights. So this campaign takes place on Exandria, the continent where the second Critical Role campaign took place. And more specifically, it takes place in Xhorhas, which is off on the eastern side of the continent, and a place that the Dwendalian Empire commonly referred to as their enemies. So the campaign does take a sharp turn into a kind of out of the abyssy like venture into another plane of existence. And I think that was a really good kind of transition to take. And the final boss of the campaign is it is a multi-tiered fight, and it has levels of combat that will challenge people in different ways depending on which tier they're encountering at the time. And I think that's another one of those good twists to kind of to just kind of challenge people in different ways, that, like, you know, on a long fight, people get used to, oh, he's going to do this. This is his shtick. You know, I've got it. We're over it. So to go a couple, 150 hit points or so in, and then have the entire script change, kind of like how the end of season 2 of Critical Role went, where they had a very challenging fight, and at the, what they thought was going to be the end of the fight totally transitioned into a whole nother fight. To have that kind of different levels of gameplay happen throughout a boss encounter is really the kind of thing that is going to make it memorable for your players. And I think that this is one of those books that doesn't necessarily need a ton of work done to it to make it super fun and super playable right out of the gate. So this book is a 3 to 12 campaign, and I think that the only real feedback that I have that would be a negative is that I would definitely try to find a way to maybe introduce a 1 and 2, like levels 1 and 2, to just be an introductory adventure for people who aren't already familiar with Exandria, Xhorhas, and all of that stuff. I know that it's a big debate whether to start at 1 and start at 3, and this was the first time they really threw out a here you can start at 3. But I think having people not really know the background of the continent and what's going on in Xhorhas, and what the difference in the world is like compared to, Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance or anything like that, to have that kind of introduction for somebody who's not familiar with Critical Role, I think would be a big deal. And while I'm familiar enough with Critical Role, I certainly don't even know all the ins and outs. I didn't sit through all of season 2. I watched a lot of recaps. I watched the beginning and I watched the end, and was able to kind of piece the story together from A to B. But I'm in no way an expert at Exandria. I also think that starting at level 1 for new players is a helpful way to get them kind of in sync with their characters. And starting off with just, okay, I can attack and that's it, is sometimes really helpful for people. And then you can start introducing, like, okay, at level 3, I now have to pick a subclass and all these other things. And now I have this whole sheet of abilities that I can do. Getting them in slower, and I think that it gets harder and harder the higher level you get, introducing a new or novice player to a higher level character, it gets a little bit hard. So I know that I said that Curse of Strahd was probably going to be the next campaign that I ran, but I think that this might get bumped up to that next campaign spot. I'm pretty excited about this book. I'm pretty excited about the whole planar travel thing. I know it's something that, gets touched on in Avernus. It gets touched on in Out of the Abyss. But it's exciting and it's fun. It's not just the same run-of-the-mill, like, okay, the bad guy's right there. We know he's right there. We'll get there eventually. And I really like the twist at the end of this. I think it's an interesting way of playing that's not just the usual, that's the bad guy and he just needs to die so that this can end. It made me think of an old raid boss from a game that I used to play, and kind of like the way that it turned out that he was just trapped all along. That's going to wrap it up for this week. I'm still working on piecing together my thoughts about the changes to 5e that are coming in 2024. I also want to do a video about the new Unearthed Arcana that was released about Dragonlance. So keep your eye out for those, keep watching, and we'll see you soon.